Welcome to Animorphs Anonymous, the podcast where we casually discuss the Animorphs one book at a time.
I'm Kaycie.
And I'm Alex.
And we're here to talk you through the plot of each book.
But more accurately, take you on tangent trips, factoid forays, and say, well, actually, as much as possible.
Join us on the 1st and the 15th of each month, and we'll take you along on our mission.
And we promise to have you back under the 2-hour time limit.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army.
Hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Hooray. Welcome back to Animorphs Anonymous, the bi-monthly Animorphs podcast that we did not have a name for the first couple of episodes.
And now we named it.
Yes.
Yay!
Hence that amazing intro you just heard that we will edit in.
Well, we're not going to edit it in for this episode, are we?
I don't know. You can play with time in podcasts. Anything can happen.
Anything can. It's magic. Anything can happen.
Anything.
Alright, well, anyways, welcome back to Animorphs Anonymous, our bi-monthly Animorphs podcast.
We're going to talk about, you guessed it, Animorphs.
No.
And also, we're going to spiral off on tangents about animals, most likely, because we're both
100%.
really into that.
100% we're going to do that.
If I may have our first order of business, I would like
Please.
to bring up another awesome battle morph that I thought of in the past couple of weeks between episodes.
Let's do it.
So, we are both Harry Potter fans.
Of course.
Would you say, Alex? Yes.
100,000% yes.
Yes. Alex is a Ravenclaw, and I am a Hufflepuff. And I thought a honey badger would be a kick-ass battle morph, because honey badgers, if you haven't seen that amazing video, can fucking withstand snake venom, and they fight lions, and they can get stung by thousands of bees and be fine. Like, they're kind of tanks, and it's amazing.
And did you see the video I sent you of that mongoose the other day that was fighting lions?
Yeah, that's what made me think of it. Cause tough little babies.
Huffle babies.
Huffle babies. Anyway, that is something I needed to bring up. Another awesome battle morph idea for y'all.
I'm glad you brought it up, because I've just been thinking more and more about battle morphs, and I still don't have anything fantastic, but I thought a funny one would be those Asian deers that have teeth, the vampire teeth.
Oh, the dicks or whatever?
Yeah, it would be hilarious to be one of those, because, like, you know, you bring it to, like, North America, and everybody's like, oh, it's a cute little deer, and then you, like, shred them. So, once again, with the weird morphs.
They do have vampire teeth.
They do. Tiny little vampire teeth. I thought it would be cool.
That is very cool.
I'm still infatuated with the moose. I liked the moose battle.
Moose.
Oh, that was a good one.
You could hoist a Hork-Bajir into your giant antlers and throw him.
You could. Oh my god, that would be amazing.
Yes.
Crush it with your face.
I feel like I have to, like, turn my face away from the mic when I breathe, a la Chocolate Rain.
Oh god. Now I'm gonna think of that every time I breathe.
Good.
Oh, we're both gonna pass out now before the end of this podcast.
Oh no. That would be terrible.
Die. Especially me, because I never stop talking.
Ah.
Oh my god. Well, I'll bring us to our second order of business,
Cool.
which is in all caps at the top of my notes for this week. I have talk about Matt's Tesla friend.
What?
Yeah, because I think we wrote this down at some point in, like, the airport, maybe? And my first order of business here just says talk about Matt's Tesla friend, and I have no clue how that factors into this podcast.
So that makes me remember I told you about Matt's friend who borrowed a Tesla Model X from work, and oh yeah, I remember the context. Okay. So in the Animorphs TV show episode where X encounters the taxi cab, and he's yeah.
Okay, tell me a story.
Okay, so in the Animorphs TV show, Axe is wandering around trying to appear human, and a taxi cab drives up to him, and the driver says, like, okay, where do you want to go? Like, get in my cab. And Axe, like, kind of stands there confusedly looking at the door, and the cab driver's like, what's wrong? And Axe goes, I'm waiting for the airlock to open. And the story here is that my live-in boyfriend has a friend who borrowed a Model X Tesla from his work, and Matt had a very similar situation trying to open the doors on that thing, because I believe they're gull doors. Like, they go upwards instead of sideways. So, yeah, I pictured Matt being like, why won't this door open? Why won't the airlock open?
Oh, man. And then the guy, like, just turning around and being like, well, I'm sure not gonna let you in. Lift up the handle and pull. Yeah, I like it. That was actually very related.
Yeah.
It was a good note to have.
Fun little anecdote.
That was a fun little anecdote.
Fun little Animorphs. No, that's nothing.
Well, it's still an antidote. It doesn't change, but we can put the font up front if you want.
Oh my god, what's going on?
We're making bad jokes. We should stop. All right.
Shall we talk about... Sorry.
No, I have something I wanted to talk about, so I'm glad that you started that with, do you want to talk about? And I'm going to just hijack this and talk about what I want to.
Do it.
Which was book 3, as you said back in podcast number 1, was the first book you read. What the hell made you want to come back and read more of the series?
Oh my god, I don't know. Book 3 is like the most emotionally intense piece of shit I've ever read. Like, it's not a piece of shit, but
this is the worst piece of shit I ever read. No, I couldn't stop.
I was just swearing casually. Yeah, book 3, I forgot how utterly terribly, oh my god, I can't even use words right now.
It's so sad.
It's so sad. It's the saddest thing.
It's probably it's emotionally wrenching. And you were just like, this was your introduction to the series, the first book you read, and you're like, you know what? Yes. It's pretty legit.
Yeah. I don't know how that happened. Maybe that's why I never kind of revisited the books as a child. You know, I mentioned that I started reading them in college. So I don't know, but it all kind of came back to me while I was reading the third book. I was kind of like, oh yeah, I remember they did this thing now.
You're like, I remember why I was so sad now.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But I liked it when they were wolves, so maybe that.
Oh, that's true. That
held my interest.
That could have drawn you back in.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, the whole time reading this book, I was just like, wow, this was your introduction to this. Mm-hmm. Oh, dear God. You poor child.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, maybe that's why I never bothered reading the other books, because I was like, well, this is clearly, like, not the happiest thing I've ever seen. So.
It's not even the second happiest thing I've ever seen.
Nope.
Oh, man. Well, now that we've said that, do you want me to start going through what happens in this book?
Hell yeah. Let's do the plot.
Let's dive right in.
I took a lot more notes this time, so I will interject occasionally with things.
Oh, please interject all the time. I have so many pages of notes.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's bad. I need to cut down.
This is a Tobias book, right?
This is a Tobias book. This is one of our rare Tobias books, because Tobias and Axe start switching off once we get further into the series. So they both have way less books than everybody else, and the next Tobias book we get is going to be in the teens already. So we'll have moved along pretty far before we get to see Tobias's perspective again. So,
yes.
This is our exciting intro. And I could see why. Maybe she wanted to, like, you know, curtail that a little bit after this book. Just probably like, oh, I'm sad now.
Because as Cassie says at one point, Tobias is never happy.
Yeah, I got so mad at that. I have complaints.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's
next book. But I have complaints.
Okay.
I want you to know I will be logging them in non-chronological order. All right. Well, so this book opens with a idiotic mission with Tobias and Rachel going to free a hawk that's in a cage at a car dealership, at Deal and Dan's car dealership, and he has price cut Polly, the red-tailed hawk that is not a parrot. So why they named her Polly, I don't know. So the first thing that happens is Tobias sees him undoing the lock and throwing food in the cage right before filming a live commercial. I'm going to list all my grievances with this. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So, obviously I already mentioned the one about it's not a parrot, it's a hawk, so price cut Polly makes no sense. Also, it is a federal offense to keep a red-tailed hawk without a permit. So putting it in a small cage and not having the proper areas for it. He's not a falconer from what we've heard in this book, or a rehabber. And also, why would you feed it right before filming something? Because as we know, hawks eat mice, quail, small rodents, that sort of thing. Why would you want to film that in your commercial? And also, lastly, there is no such thing as a live commercial.
I literally also wrote that.
I'm glad, because I had so many problems with it.
Yeah, I called super bullshit on that. I'm like, if this is truly a commercial, like, it could be like a TV spot, like if they were recording the news and the news cut to the cameraman on site there, but like, why would they do that?
I don't
like.
There's no need, because if he like messed it up, like why wouldn't you just film a regular commercial?
Yeah. So. I called bullshit on that for sure.
I called bullshit on this entire thing. Just from start to finish. I mean, they could have just called the police and the guy would have been in jail for a couple of years, or minimum had to pay a $200,000 fine for keeping a protected species in captivity with no permit.
Yeah, and I mean, some people, like in Hollywood, they like rent like specific animals for like movies and such, but this is, a one-off car dealership. There's no way he would do that. So
yeah, and that leads into my next problem for this, where after this whole situation goes down that we'll recap in a minute, Rachel says something about like how thousands of people could see a live commercial, and I'm like, Rachel, he's not paying that much to distribute this commercial. This will not be going to thousands of people. Like, maybe your local station. Maybe.
Yeah.
So those were all of my problems with this situation.
I completely concur.
Oh man. And it's also...
It's a book for children.
It is a book for children. It's also my PSA about keeping raptors in cages. Don't take them from the wild. You'll go to jail. You'll pay lots of money. It's a bad move.
Yes.
All right, well, delving back into the actual book instead of just my list of problems with the book, what happens is that they're keeping Price Cut Polly in this cage, and they're going to film this live commercial, and Tobias and Rachel hatch this cockamamie scheme to go into this car dealership and free the bird, which includes Rachel morphing into an elephant and stomping convertibles. Which was hilarious. And
not conspicuous at all.
Not conspicuous at all. It's super undercover work that they're doing here.
Yes.
So while they're doing that, Tobias also completely inconspicuously goes and uses his beak to punch in the lock combo to free the hawk.
Right.
Which sounds really difficult. I do not think that would work, especially the double turn for the third letter or the third number combination.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I had a question, kind of unrelated, but while Tobias is doing this, like, the car dealership guy is going like, guys, you gotta get that hawk out of there, like, what are you doing? And the guys, of course, don't want to touch him because it's a fucking red-tailed hawk.
Yeah.
That's supposedly wild. And one of them asks, he's like, oh, it might have rabies. And I'm like, can birds get rabies?
They cannot.
Okay.
Birds cannot get rabies. There's something like 10 diseases that are transferable between birds and people, and most of those come from consuming the meat. So,
Gotcha.
You're really not at risk touching birds at all. I mean,
fun fact.
They have beaks and talons, which hurt, but like you're not going to contract really any diseases from it. The most risk you have is if you get footed or something like that you'll get bacteria in the wound, but that's not from the bird itself.
Also, let's debunk the myth right now that, like, they say don't pick up, like, baby animals and, like, put them back in the nest because the mother can smell the human on them. That is not true for most birds, because most birds do not have a sense of smell. Yes?
Yeah, completely false. And even the ones that have a sense of smell will not reject the babies from putting them back in the nest. So if the nest is visible, the mother's taking care of the other ones. I mean, we could go into a whole other thing about being able to identify nestlings versus fledglings, but if the nest is there and they're young and unfeathered, then you can put them back in the nest with no negative effects whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
PSA.
Hooray! The more you know.
The more you know. So
we talk about fun animal facts on this show, in addition to Animorphs.
So many animal facts.
Yay!
Oh gosh. All right. Well, leaving our PSA land and going back to book land.
Yes.
So
Rachel is stomping cars as an elephant, and everyone is presumably freaking out.
Probably. They're probably a little concerned. Like, but insurance would cover that, right?
Sure.
Okay. Unless they're like, it's an act of God. Oh, man.
God sent the plagues of elephants.
The plagues. Thousands of elephants came through the car dealership, crushing the cars. Elephants wearing blonde wigs.
Oh, I had a question. So they make a point to mention that Rachel was late in this cockamamie scheme because the bus was late.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why didn't she just like morph her eagle morph, fly over, and then morph elephant? Was that a stamina thing at that point? Because they couldn't.
Yeah,
they hadn't been able to double morph yet.
Yeah, they're still not great at double morphing. And there's also a lot of times in these early books where like it just hasn't occurred to them yet. Like every time they go to the gardens and they're like, God damn it, Marco, why don't you have enough money to buy a ticket? It's like, dude, like figure it out, fly in. You don't have to do this. But you know, then they do figure it out later on. But it's pretty funny in these first books when you're like, okay, you're still paying for tickets. Like, you're single-handedly keeping the gardens in business with how many times you have to visit them.
Right.
And then they just, well, we'll get to that. But, yeah, they keep having to pay for things and, like, take buses. They take buses a lot in these early books, and I don't know if it's just a point to mention how they do their homework on the bus, because they're all very socially responsible still as people at this point.
Sure.
So, maybe that's
I also kind of picture them as living in, like, a small, like, suburban town. And usually in suburban towns, the public transportation system options really kind of suck. So I'm kind of surprised they can actually take buses everywhere.
Well, yeah, and that's, like, not an option for Cassie, because no bus is going to go to the barn and get her other than the school bus. Like,
right.
Because she's on the outskirts of town. And, like, Jake's in the middle of suburbia, Rachel would be too. Marco used to be, but now he lives in the shady area of town, so they'd probably have decent public transportation. But Marco would be the only one, and then Tobias is always a bird, so he has great transportation.
Right.
And a carbon footprint of 0. Oh, God. So, yeah, that would make sense why Rachel would be bad at buses. I, too, am bad at buses, and we had to do buses for a few years. I'm still bad at them. Still have no clue how to take them.
It's okay. They can be very complicated.
Thank you for forgiving me for my lack of skill. Okay, so what they end up doing here is Rachel's late. Tobias is already like dive bombing, going in to set the hawk free. Rachel's stomping the cars, and they do end up succeeding in letting this hawk go free. Yay! Yay, social justice people.
Yay, free the birds.
Free the birds.
And then Tobias, at this point, kind of has his first kind of fleeting moment of, maybe I should be with that hawk. Maybe I should fly away with her. And he kind of goes, whoa, like, what was that? That was weird. That was a weird, fleeting sensation I just had.
Yeah. It was. It was pretty weird. And then he's like, oh, wait, just kidding. No, gotta go watch my not girlfriend demorph from elephant. Like, whoa, that's a super weird situation. I just realized, like, it doesn't hit me until I start saying things out loud, but like, oh no, do I go with the hawk who I have hawk feelings for, or do I go back to my girlfriend who's demorphing from an elephant? Oh, the choices that you have to make in middle school. I remember it was hard.
Yep. Oh my god.
Ay. So after that whole shenanigan went down, they do end up going back to the barn where they get lots of shit from Jake because it was pretty irresponsible of them.
Yeah, that was reckless and pretty dumb, not gonna lie.
Yeah, and it's just not, it's not good. Ay. And while he's flying back there, that's also when Tobias sees the ripple in the sky for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty exciting. He's like flying around, like looking like through skyscrapers, which also, where are these skyscrapers in this small town? What town is this?
Where do they live?
Why would skyscrapers be on the way to the barn? That doesn't make sense. Where do they live? What city? Who set this up? Who set this town up?
I was so under the impression that they lived in like a small kind of coastal town or suburb or something.
Yeah.
Unless I'm gonna make my first guess as to where they are, and my first guess was in the Seattle area. So maybe they live in a coastal town and he just kind of flew over to Seattle proper and was looking at shit. I don't know.
He flew into Seattle proper.
I don't know.
I just love that he's like taking a side trip.
I'm going to Seattle. We go to Starbucks.
Oh god. Well, I'm neither going to confirm nor deny your guess.
I don't know. That's just my first kind of guess, based on all of the geographical indicators of mountains and ocean and forests and all that shit.
And skyscrapers and suburbs and public transport. Actually, you know what? I was just weird side story note. At Thanksgiving, I was just talking to my live-in boyfriend's cousin who is moving to Seattle because she just got a job as a transport planner in Seattle, and they apparently have one of the best public transport systems in the U.S.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, so maybe that explains the bus scenario. Although it's not the 90s, so I don't know what their like public transport was like in the 90s, but...
That's actually interesting because Seattle is basically a series of islands, so like for getting your car from one island to another, you either have to drive over a bridge or take a ferry.
Ooh, yeah.
So I guess I wouldn't think that they would have a great public transit system.
Maybe she was just saying that because that's her job now, and she was trying to fool me into thinking she was really good at her job, even though she doesn't work there yet.
Right.
So.
Like, of all the cities I've been to, you can't really beat New York and its subway system.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You can get wherever you want to go instantaneously, like, pretty much.
Yeah, like when we were watching the Grand Tour and, like, they were racing Clarkson through the subway system in New York, I was like, psh, they're gonna win.
Yeah. By the way, I want to talk to you about the Grand Tour at some point.
All right, that'll be the end of the Animorphs podcast, the Grand Tour corner. Animorphs Anonymous, we talk about the Grand Tour. Welcome to our podcast.
Yay!
Our bi-monthly podcast about Top Gear. Oh wait, Grand Tour.
It's basically Top Gear, let's not even gonna lie.
It is basically Top Gear. Anyways,
back to book number 3, The Encounter.
Yes.
We are informal as fuck, audience.
We are, and
this is what you signed up for.
This is what you volunteered for. To listen to us talk about anything but Animorphs, but starting from Animorphs. Great. Oh dear God. Anyways,
so they're back at the barn, right? Yeah, they're back at the barn.
Yeah, it kind of switches back and forth at first because Tobias just keeps going back and forth between like the barn, the meadow, the Jake's house. Yeah,
he's got time to kill. So Marco is yelling at them, like, "Are you insane? Like, why would you do that? You're an idiot." And Tobias actually makes a note in his narration where he says he and Marco will never be close, which I thought was really interesting. That is kind of an interesting thing to say in, like, you know, one of the earlier books. It's like, okay, does Tobias actively dislike Marco on some level? Like, Marco says some, you know, pretty insensitive things to Tobias in previous books, but, like, I just thought that, like, we don't really know what their relationship is up until now, and just to hear Tobias kind of say that is kind of like, huh, interesting.
Yeah, and like in the first book, we get a little glimpse of it when Tobias is kind of hanging out with Jake and Marco, and he's kind of like third wheeling it with them at the mall. So like first book, like the first 4 pages, they mention how Marco was kind of not super pumped that Tobias was there. So there's some tension, and you know, they've got to have a weird relationship. But I don't want to talk about this from my perspective because I want to say so much about like how as they grow, like these relationships that they set out now and start talking about now, it changes a lot because they go through so much shit that they become close.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Tell me more.
Tell
me more about what you thought about this.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's basically it. It was kind of just an early reading observation. So I didn't know if it was like an active kind of dislike or it was because their personalities are so different. So I don't know. I think that we'll see.
Yeah, and I think that was the point he was trying to make, was just that their personalities were so different because Marco's this like smart aleck kind of funny guy. I wrote the same thing down too, actually, because I wanted to point it out, but he's like this smart aleck kind of guy, and Tobias is just, you know, sensitive and quiet, and they are at odds because, you know, Tobias is 100% in this fight, and he now has no other options, and Marco is still, as they mention, on the outskirts of this. He still does not want to fight. He still wants to, you know, go home to his family and be there for his dad. So they're kind of opposed in every way they can be at this point in time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting to hear him say it. And I also wrote down that I'm really excited to hear how Cassie describes Marco, because we heard it from Jake, who, you know, it's his best friend. He was painted in such a positive light. We heard it from Rachel, and we know that their relationship is constantly getting on each other's nerves and, you know, kind of opposing. But, like, at the end of the day, they kind of fall on the same side a lot of the time. And this is the first time we're hearing, like, Tobias, who's like, no, Marco's not really, we're not cool. And then to hear it from Cassie, too, who not only has that, like, she's really sensitive and she's really in tune with, you know, like, nature and her surroundings. And Marco's, like, in tune with technology and video games and wants nothing to do with it. Like, they're so opposed. And Cassie's kind of, you know, she's got a crush on Jake, which always adds an awkward tension to that kind of best friend relationship. Or not always, but a lot of the times we'll bring that awkward element into it. So I always said I was interested to hear what Cassie had to say. So that's my feelings on that.
Cool.
But yeah, I wrote that down too to talk about it.
Nice.
Yeah. And then Cassie is saying she has to go back to the rehab clinic, and that's when Marco makes a joke about not saying cage around Tobias because of his prior incident, earlier in the day incident, freeing the hawk. So it was just kind of like one of those things where like, haha, that's funny that he's like, Marco and I will never really get along, and Marco's like, oh, don't say cage around Tobias, he'll go batshit on you. So I kind of see it. I see why he doesn't like him. And then I also wanted to point out that Jake told Tobias he was going to put food in the attic for him in a Tupperware, and we will be revisiting this later because I, once again, have complaints.
Yes.
All right, so the next day, Tobias goes scouting again, which is basically his main thing that he does at this point. He's kind of appointed himself this job of being a scout because he can't be part of...
Do anything else.
Right, he can't do anything else. And he's not, like... He's really feeling at this point that he is not a part of the team because he can't morph and he can't help out in the fights. So he's doing stupid stuff, risky stuff, or whatever he can think of to try and make up for that. So he goes scouting. He's going to find that ripple. He's apparently thinking it's going to come through at the same time during the day. And then he kind of like waxes a little poetic about turkey vultures, which I wrote that down because I friggin' love turkey vultures so much. So I appreciated that. And he's talking about how good they are at riding thermals.
Yeah, he's got like flight envy.
Oh, he should. I mean, turkey vultures they have some issues, like, you know, they don't really fly in the early morning because they really do require the thermals to fly, but oh man, you want to talk about conserving energy, that's the way to go. Yeah. So, anyways, so Tobias goes on about turkey vultures, and they start talking about his home life and how terrible it was, and he doesn't really want to dwell on it. But he does give the basic, like, oh, I was shuffled back and forth between my aunt and my uncle. They don't really give a crap about me. And when I first got stuck in the body of a hawk, they basically just pulled, like, the sleepover trick of they called each caretaker and said, I'm at the other one's house. Yeah. So.
It's kind of sad.
Well,
it's very sad.
This entire book is very sad.
I know, but especially because, I don't know. Like, he's now permanently a hawk, and he can't, like, basically no one's gonna miss him. Yeah. Is what it comes down to. So that kind of adds a lot onto his plate there, emotionally. Yeah, it does. And the other part of this, too, is that he's got almost nothing tying him to his humanity, which is something he struggles with a lot now. So... The only thing he has that's basically his whole arc in the book.
Yeah, it's a huge part of it. I agree with that. That is pretty much his arc for these series. Or it's at least something he struggles with for the entire series. Yeah. And after telling us he had a horrible home life and he was shuffled around, the ripple comes back. So let's go on a fantastic, fun chase of this ripple where... he's flying as fast as he can, and he can't keep up, but he sees it in front of him, and as he's, going for it, he sees this flock of geese, this formation of geese coming straight at the thing, and they just crumple around this ripple and, like, roll off the back of it, and oh my god.
It's so sad. I felt so bad for those geese.
Me too, and, like, geese are sturdy, man. They bring down airplanes. And it was just sad. So, like, now he's like, oh, I was abused as a child. Oh, look, the ship's back. Oh, well, the geese are dying. The ship's back. Oh, God.
Yeah, the geese were basically to just be, like, a visual indicator of, like, what the thing was and how big it was.
Yeah, and to see their deceased bodies, crumpled bodies, rolling over the top of it. To say it is this long. Yes, that is 30 goose lengths long.
This is not a good book for people who are particularly sensitive to animal death in fiction. So, just a heads up, audience.
Heads up. This is a really depressing book. Yeah. And again,
from many perspectives.
Yeah, and you read this as your first intro as a child. Yeah. Well, that's sad.
The other books seem tame compared to this one.
I would not go that far.
So far.
So far, yeah, this is...
I'm sure that will change.
Yeah. Although, then again, in the first book, I mean, Elfangor got shredded by... Never mind. We know. It's bad. It's all bad.
Yay. Hooray.
Yay! Alright, so the kids go and meet at the rehab clinic because they want to discuss this ripple, which they figured out is a ship because of the geese. And so they know it was headed, or they at least think it was headed towards the mountain. So they're like, well, it's on the straight line. That's where the trajectory is. We're pretty sure it's there. Why are they going there? And then it just turns into the fight again of Cassie being like, what are we doing this? Why is this happening? And Marco's like, that's what I'm saying. Let's not fight. And then Cassie's like, oh, but we do have to do this for Mother Earth. So, so that's fun. But, Marco has, again, his struggle about
not wanting
to do this. And...
yeah.
He really he's really kind of a dick. Like, I don't know, maybe this is just a note for me to keep in mind, or for us to keep in mind. Is he more of a dick in Tobias books than any other books? Because he just seems like more of a dick in these books.
Maybe because it's from Tobias's perspective, I don't know.
Maybe. That could absolutely be it. But I'm going to keep that in mind the next Tobias book, because he really is a freaking dick in this book. So he has the outburst about not sticking your neck out for strangers, and he's like, Tom's gone, too bad, so sad, what of it? And it's like, wow, wow, Marco, you're really a dick. And Rachel just kind of blows up at him and says, like, you're being a dick. Rachel has the same reaction I just had. My bad. And
you are Rachel.
I am. My rage is Rachel. You'll see as the series goes on. My rage is really in line with Rachel.
Oh my god.
But I'm trying. Anyway, so she explodes at him. She's like, if you're out, you're out. Leave. And Marco's like, he basically just accuses her of getting off on the danger. And
oh yeah, I wrote that too.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, like, that's kind of a thing for a 12-year-old to say, like, that somebody's like getting off on danger or something, or just like, jeez. And also it was just very like I had that thought about Rachel kind of early on, especially in her book, like when she was the cat, that she's like, oh yeah, I really like, running into dangerous situations because it makes me feel powerful or whatever, but I also kind of feel like that's not really correct, too. Because, like, Rachel does get scared, but I think her bravery is what keeps her going, maybe? Yeah,
and she says that it's not that she isn't scared, it's that she's scared and she does what she has to do anyways. Like, she's not... She's kind of a thrill seeker, but she's not suicidal,
Right.
She has a healthy dose of fear. She just pushes it down and ignores it.
Right.
Yeah, so this whole argument is... it keeps happening, but it really flared up in this book, and it really... Especially after reading, the fourth book, which is from the Cassie perspective, it just really seems like Marco's such a huge dick in this one. And I like more so than I remember him being in the Jake book, and it kind of ramped up a little bit in the Rachel book. But it was, again, in situations where it's between him and Tobias, and she's kind of like... The reason it's in the Rachel books is because she's defending Tobias. So, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do wonder if there's some sort of, like, bias perspective depending on what book it is.
I think there is. Like, I don't have, like, solid citations that I can point you towards, but, like, when I read the books, I really do get the honest feeling that I'm reading something from a different person's perspective and narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So, I like that. It's one of the things that I really, like, enjoy about the books, and I don't know, like, it's one of those things where, like, is it an asset or a detriment? Because if you really like one character's perspective, you might just want to wait for those books, and the other ones are like, yeah, keep going. But I like every single one. Like, I really do. Like, each person brings a different something to the story. Yeah. Marco's a dick. And Tobias has a really good comeback to this, and Tobias is like, I'm the only one so far that's been hurt, and I'm not going to stop fighting. And that led me to a thought that I want to express now, which is that Cassie's the one who's always pegged as the one who brings down the tensions between people, but Tobias is actually a really good mediator, and he kind of makes a good argument for things and goes between people and says the right things, and he never does it with the manipulation that Cassie sometimes has. So I just wanted to point that out. I think Tobias is really good at that too, and it's not part of his like narrative in each of the books. Like, it's not part of his character description and each open, but I think he's pretty good at that.
Well, and he's got a really dry sense of humor, so like I've seen him very much kind of just like cracking a joke to kind of like dissolve the tension, but not in like a way that Marco would crack a joke. But it's still like successfully kind of like puts everyone at ease. Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and he does end up using that a lot in these books where he's trying to come to terms with himself. Like, he cracks a lot of self-depreciating jokes. Yeah, poor guy. This is just making me sad talking about it. Oh, no. So, on a happier note, they decide to go to the mountains the next day after school because they're like, we can't all keep skipping school, and we can't just keep skipping school together because people are going to figure that out. Right. And it's like, I really like this. This is like their first, we're thinking of security kind of moment. Like, we can't give ourselves away.
So they decide to do this by morphing into wolves, which Cassie had at her barn.
Yes. Yes, they did.
Which somebody makes a point of mentioning that wolves are new to the area, and I totally meant to look that up, but I forgot, because I think that would be, if that was historically accurate, then that could be another indicator of where they are.
Yeah. I don't know how accurate it is, though, because, like, I mean, it said so in the book, but at the same time, like, the forest is really close to a city, and I can't think of a place where they've recently released wolves that's like right butting up a major city.
Right.
But yeah, it's a good clue.
I don't know. I don't know. Again, if it were an accurate fact, like if they introduced wolves into the, Mount Rainier Park at any point in the 90s. But I don't know if that's the case. It might just be convenient for story purposes. Anyway.
Yeah. And it can always be like one of those accidental, like somebody had a zoo in their backyard and all the animals got loose. Oh, jeez. So anyways, they decide to do this as wolves. And my note here, I can see where we diverged mentally, because you were like, let's talk about how cool these wolves are. And I was like, Tobias calls out how awesome bird watchers are. Thank you. So we went two very different directions here.
Jeez.
So, yeah. And then Tobias makes a very good point, because if I saw like a northern oh my goodness, osprey, northern harrier, where did I pull that from? I don't believe that's in this book at all. Anyways, an osprey, an eagle, a hawk, and a peregrine falcon, like if I saw all of those within the same hour, I wrote that I would burn this place to the ground.
What is going on? It's a conspiracy.
It's a conspiracy. But yeah, so they go into the forest to morph wolves. And do you want to talk about the wolves?
I wrote down, I was so annoyed because it was mentioned that I think Cassie's morphing first, because she always does. And in the description of the morph, it's described as her knees change direction. And that is not accurate. I'm sorry, I just yelled.
It's not accurate at all.
That is not accurate at all. Wolves' knees are not in the pointy part. That is their heel, and their knee is up kind of in the rounded area of their back legs. Anyway, it upset me.
Actually, now that you say that, did she say that about the horse morph too? Because they have the same situation going on there.
I don't know.
Oh.
We'll have to check that. But actually, and when I was rereading this and getting upset, I kind of remembered as a kid reading this book and kind of going like, is that true? No, probably not. And kind of like calling bullshit on it when I was first read this book. Anyway.
I love that so much.
I was super annoyed about that because like there's such a point in these books to make animals like factually correct,
Mm-hmm.
but then like little slip ups like that are like really annoying to me. I don't know. Anyway,
Well, it's almost like she set the standard so high that when she misses it, we're like, what the hell?
how could you
How
betray
could you?
our trust?
I trusted you. I thought that a shrew's brain really was like this, and now I'm doubting it.
Oh my god. I mean, not to be like, you know, a well actually kind of like fuckboy response. Like, I'm not
Well,
trying to like
actually.
mansplain Animorphs here. But like,
Damn it, now I have a new podcast name. It should be Kaycie and Alex Mansplain the Animorphs. Damn it! That'll have
my
to be
God.
the TV show series that we do. Another
Okay.
podcast. New podcast.
New podcast.
We'll announce it when we have it up. Oh, God.
Anyway.
Anyways, the other part that I wanted to point out here is that when she's morphing, she has a pink and green leotard, which is the most 90s thing I've ever heard in my life.
Oh my god, totally.
I love it so much.
Uh-huh.
I had those pink and green like gloves for like skateboarding with like the wrist
Oh yeah.
piece, and I was like imagining this outfit but just completed for my entire body, and I was like, yes, I would wear that.
My mom had like the neoprene kind of pink and green jacket thing. So yeah, it was like it was
Oh
super 90s.
yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, my parents had that jacket too. My mom,
Holy
I
shit.
assume.
I think everyone had that jacket.
Everyone
in the
had to have
90s.
had that jacket. It was
Oh.
iconic.
Oh my
And it was
god.
probably like $25 because it was nothing but a shell. Like there was nothing to it.
Yeah.
And it was very loud too.
Yeah, it made whooshing noises whenever you moved.
Yeah. It would
God.
be. And I can hear it so clearly. It
I
would have
know.
been terrible to wear for morphing because, like, you'd be like, "We're running away from the Yerks." Oh God! Well, she had just had the leotard, not the jacket, I think, or she
Yeah.
had the jacket. She took it off.
So it only made tiny whooshing noises.
A little whooshing. Oh God, that's hilarious.
God.
Oh my God.
So
All right.
anyway, they morph wolves.
Wolves.
And Tobias, like, realizes he's a little bit jealous because everyone's like, whoa, this is so cool. I can see everything. I can smell everything. I can hear everything. It's great. And then Tobias is actually kind of jealous of this. And gets kind of like a moment of being bitter about being stuck as a hawk, which is like, in the
Fair.
beginning, he was like, all I want to be is a hawk. So
Yeah.
that was kind of an interesting moment, I thought.
Yeah. I think we see this struggle a lot, and I think he's kind of regretting it. He's really regretting that this happened.
Yep.
But, you know. And then he also makes mention that their journey is really slow because Jake keeps peeing on everything.
Right, because Jake decided to morph the alpha wolf, and so he has to mark his territory everywhere.
He won the coin toss with Marco, remember?
Right. Yeah, they make a point of saying that there could only be one male alpha wolf in the pack, or else they would fight. So Marco had to morph into the female wolf because they flipped the coin.
I thought they could have...
It depends, because like the ideal wolf pack, I think, is to have the mating alpha male and female, and then any other males in the pack are ideally their offspring, but you can have more than one male in the pack.
Yeah.
But I think in this situation, since they only had two wolves to choose from,
yeah.
like maybe the same male wolf, they both would have been alphas.
Uh-huh.
But they probably could have like fought it out a little bit and went and worked it out a hierarchy. So I don't know. I think it was just an excuse to make Marco a female wolf and to have him complain loudly about it.
Well, I appreciated that at least.
Which I don't know why. Like, female wolves are, just as tough as male wolves. They just don't generally weigh as much.
Yeah.
God, Marco, feminism.
Pee on everything.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh man.
Anyway.
And then they start howling like idiots too.
Yes, and Tobias is like, you guys are idiots.
Yeah, he basically at this point, he's like, never mind, I like being a hawk because you're all stupid.
Yeah.
And then he has this really sad moment too after that where he goes, Should I ask him about being wolves? No, that would be stupid. Why don't I just ask him about what it's like to be a human then, too? It's like, oh.
Baby, it's okay.
I mean, it's okay. We'll tell you all about what it's like to be human. We're blind and stupid and we fall down a lot.
Yep.
So it's terrible.
We make terrible life decisions.
We do. Constantly. Constantly terrible life decisions.
Yep.
Oh.
So they run to... Wait. I think at some point Tobias was like, you know what, I'm sick of these fools. Like, I'm just gonna fly ahead and scout.
Mm-hmm.
And so he flies to... Where does he fly to? Like a lake area? And he finds the ship, and no. Sorry, I'm misremembering. I think he sees a bunch of, like, guys carrying, like, M16s, like, driving to a certain location.
Mm-hmm. He sees the park rangers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they come across a couple that are camping, and they, like, escort them out of there, because that's not, like, suspicious at all.
Right.
And does he see the ship at that point?
Not quite yet. So they get the campers out of the way, and the helicopters surround the lake, and that's when the Hork-Bisher jump out of there. And I wrote, "These are no rangers." And then that's when he doubles back to warn them that there are Hork-Bisher at the lake ahead, and then he lands in the middle of a wolf pack, and they're not talking to him. And he's like, "Guys, there's Hork-Bisher. Why are you not freaking out?" And they're just staring at him, and that's when he realizes, oh, this is the wolf pack that's really here, that really lives here. And,
and they almost eat him.
And that's when he does get away from them, barely. And then he flies over to the actual Animorphs, and he's like, "Is that you?" And they're like, "Why are you asking us?" "Of course it's us." And he's like, "Don't even ask me about it." And
even though that would have been pertinent information to know.
It really would have been. He could have told them that.
By the way, there's another wolf pack around. You might want to watch yourselves.
Right.
Which Cassie probably would have done if she had been in his situation. But anyway.
Yeah, but Cassie's also... She'd be like, "I'll tell Jake whatever he wants to know," and Tobias is more like, "Ugh, I'm not gonna bitch to them about how I almost got eaten. I don't want to be a pain in the ass again." So... Poor Tobias. Oh my god. So that's when they make it back towards the lake, and they see that the ship is there. And they don't have a ton of time left in Morph, but they decide they're just going to go for it anyways, because they just need to see what's happening here. And the ship shows up, it decloaks, it looks like a giant manta ray. There's even bug fighters around, like, surrounding it, but it's just this huge freaking giant, like, whale of a ship that's humongous, and its only reason to be there is to suck up oxygen from the atmosphere and the giant scoops on the side of it, and then the water from the lake through this, like, suction tube on the bottom of it.
Right. Also, how do the humans not notice this shit? Like we saw them escorting one camper couple out of there, but, like, and so I'm assuming they kind of, like, swarmed the entire area and, like made everybody leave. But for fuck's sake, like, I don't... Sometimes, like, some of the things that they do, I'm like, how did no one notice that?
And, like, why can't they stay cloaked while they suck up the water from the lake?
Yeah, unless they need to power down to, like, restore energy or something. I don't know. But, like, I feel like they're trying to take precautions, but they're still not being terribly careful. I don't know.
Maybe they're like, we just do not care. What are they going to do to us?
Because so many of the people we control in this area.
Right, and you know, maybe they're like, well, if somebody sees us, we'll just infest them. And who's going to believe people about, like, oh, there's this giant ship in the middle of the lake, and it's sucking up all the water, and they're like, what are you, insane?
Right.
No. Well, yeah, that's a really good point. There's a lot of things going on. Although, you know what? The kids have the same thought we just did, too.
Yep, yeah, I was just thinking that. I'm like...
Whoops.
It's like, wow, that's a really big conspicuous thing. What if something were to happen where it was exposed to the entire area?
If only they had thought of a plan like that.
UFOs, flying saucers.
You don't believe in that,
You don't believe that, do you?
Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
Well...
If only they had just gone to the sharing.
If only they had. It's just a really fun, wholesome time. Oh, God. Anyways, the team decides to fall back because of the morphing time limits, and Tobias kind of flies off, and he sees the female hawk that they freed. She's flying above him, and
he has his
second moment.
Fleeting moment of wanting to join her. He fell in love with the hawk, basically.
He did. He fell in love. I almost was quoting a song.
Is it I'm in love with a stripper?
Yes, but anyways, stripper's fine. I don't care if you're in love with a stripper.
I'm in love with a red tail.
That's the new song. We're gonna record that. We're gonna record that and release that.
Okay. Oh my god.
I'm in love with a red tail.
Cool. Yes.
So
he falls in love with the red tail. And
he does, but then peels off and is like, "No, but my other lover. Where is she?
My human lover.
My human lover. Where did she go? My human wolf lover."
Yes. And at this point, I think they're having a standoff with the other wolf pack that they just ran into.
Yes, and can I read you my note on this?
Yes, please do.
I wrote, the Animorph pack is locked in combat with the other wolves over a dead rabbit, ! So in order to save his friends, Tobias swoops in and grabs the rabbit because he's ballsy as fuck.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, that's a lot of weight for a red tail, yeah?
Yes. Yes, it is.
It's not like a great horned owl who can carry off a skunk.
No. Generally, it would be only a large female that would take out a rabbit, and that would be pretty risky. It would have to be a pretty large female. Although, I mean, it was already dead, so like it wasn't
they don't
necessarily
have to worry about it, like struggling and
right.
failing.
They don't. They're not at risk of being kicked, but also there's a bunch of wolves around it, so the risk of not being kicked is kind of like he could fly with it. It would just be very, very difficult, and he would not be able to get high. He wouldn't be able to go far.
Right.
So yeah, so that's what happened. He took the rabbit to break up the fight, and the Anapack runs off unscathed, and Tobias somehow gets out too.
To be honest, I'm not quite sure that... I mean, depending on where the wolves were in the fight, I'm not sure that would be enough to stop the fight. Because I think, in my experience with dog fights, you reach a certain point where they will fight to the death, unless you, can physically get them apart.
They said that they were snarling at each other.
Okay, so they hadn't yet made
they
contact.
Hadn't made contact yet. They were just snarling over the dead rabbit.
Right.
So would that be? And also, it's a
yeah. I mean, it depends too. It depends on things. But yeah, at that point, it probably would have been feasible to break them up. But I just kind of pictured them snarling, Tobias swooping in, the wolves kind of going, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, exactly what I pictured too. And the quick head swoop as their head turns.
Kind of like the double take, yeah.
The double take, what just happened? I mean, it might work. We could run this experiment. We could get a pack of wolves.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, they're assumed to be fighting over the food, but they would also probably be fighting over territory.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, again, I'm not sure. Whatever.
They would chase them out of their territory. Even if they were distracted for that moment and the Animorphs took off, they would still chase them out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they don't.
It's all fine.
It's all fine. It's not fine, actually, because now his friends, he's exhausted from flying, and his friends don't know how long they've been in Morph. So he flies off to find a clock, which he sees on the dashboard of one of the trucks. And so he's like, oh, I'll just go check how they're doing on time. I know they're close. And he takes a look at the clock, and he realizes they are over the time limit, and they are now wolves forever, and this is the end of the series.
And then Fluffer McKitty killed them all.
And then Fluffer McKitty killed them all.
The end.
The end. Yay!
Yay!
Just kidding. What happens is so much worse.
Oh, yeah. This scene was... Oh, man. This was hard to read.
Oh, it was. And I need to talk about it, so...
Well, let's talk about it then.
All right. Well, so he gets back, and he realizes that the clock might have been off by maybe a few minutes, or maybe the 2-hour time limit is a little flexible. They don't have the experience at this point to know kind of that, it's 2 hours and 3 minutes, like there's a little wiggle room in there, and it depends on how good you are at morphing. So Cassie starts demorphing. She's struggling, but she gets out of her morph in double the time that anybody else does. Everybody else is struggling out of their morph. They're having problems. And there's this moment where Marco's struggling. He's kind of partway out of the morph, and he's stuck. And he looks at Tobias and starts staring him down with this hatred in his eyes.
My fucking God, I also wrote that. And that was like a total gut punch for me.
Oh
like,
my God, yeah.
That in that moment we realize that Marco's greatest fear is being stuck.
And never being able to return to his dad.
Yep. It's oh my God.
And then
I literally wrote down ouch.
Yeah, ouch, but I mean, think of it this way. This whole book is Tobias telling us how he thinks he's weak and he can't hunt and he can't do this stuff because he's weak. And Tobias took one of his friends staring him down and said, if you need to look at me and you need to hate me in this moment, you do it.
Yeah.
Do it. And I will stand here and I will take it for you.
Yeah, if that's going to give you the drive to get out of this morph, then I will. Oh my God. Oh God, my heart hurts.
This is book 3.
Fuck this shit.
God, I have tears in my eyes.
I know, I had like a physical visceral reaction just then. Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh.
Fuck.
He's the strongest strongest character.
I really want to flip my desk. I hate everything.
I need to flip my desk over.
They're fucking 12 years old.
They're 12 years old, and oh God.
Oh my God.
It's just heart-wrenching.
Let's move on because I'm tired of feeling emotions.
Okay, we're moving on. Tobias flies away screaming because he knows he's trapped. Is that what you wanted to go to next?
Oh God. I forgot that's literally the next thing. Is that they all get out of
they're celebrating.
And Tobias is like, oh my God, and realizes the gravity of the situation, and he just fucking takes off.
Yeah, because he's only been trapped as a hawk for like a week at this point. Right. And he's suddenly realizing, I have the rest of my hawk life ahead of me. Yep. And I will never turn back. I'll never be anything more than this. And he just takes off.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
How long do hawks live?
He could live in the wild. He's probably not going to make it much past about 10 to 15 if he survives the first year. In captivity, 30, 40 years.
Gotcha.
So, depends. And since he's got human intelligence, I'm assuming he'll make it a little longer.
Okay, yeah. I wondered if the age would be restricted to the being in the physical form of a hawk, or like since he has a hawk brain and a human brain, like how that works. Anyway. Yeah,
and I mean there's a lot of other things to consider here too. Like we don't know how the morphing technology kind of,
right?
How that works with ages exactly, and there's some talk too about the other Animorphs, like when they're morphing because they return to the same DNA. Is that kind of slowing down their aging process by all the times they spent in morph?
I've wondered that quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever answered in the book series, but there's discussion about it.
Cool.
Yeah. Yep.
So Tobias flies off. Very
screaming.
Sad.
Yep. And
I wrote down a note that I think from what I remember, he's just flying around, just like trying to work off his energy. And he's flying at night again. And we talked about this in, I think, book 1, where you mentioned that hawks cannot really fly at night because they really can't see at night.
They cannot. This is a terrible idea. Yep. Yeah.
It's another frustrating animal inaccuracy.
Well, let me get to my frustrating animal inaccuracy. So he goes to Jake's house next, where Jake left a Rubbermaid full of food for him. And he left him meat, potatoes, and green beans. So, maybe that's fine for Jake, who doesn't know anything about birds. But Cassie is there. She knows what red tails eat. She has access to frozen mice, frozen quail, Like,
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and she doesn't say shit. She's like, yeah, that's fine, Jake. Meat, potatoes, green beans, fine. And, like, he can't eat cooked meat because the grease in that will ruin his feathers. It comes out of their skin in oil. It kills them. It shuts down their kidneys. They can't process that. Like, maybe it would be fine for this, like, week that he's there, but it's gonna be so problematic for his health, number one. And number two, Cassie's a friggin' rehabber. Come on!
Why didn't he just go to her barn where it would be, A, less conspicuous for him to be there, and B, would have had access to actual food he could eat?
Yeah!
Like, my only thing I can think of is that maybe, like, they haven't fully... Like, maybe there was some sort of revulsion at the idea of eating frozen mice.
Well, so, I could see that, because he does mention that he doesn't like that, but, like, quail is something people eat.
Yeah.
People eat quail all the time. You get restaurant-grade quail, and he will be just fine.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
Anyway.
Yes, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tobias eats his cooked meat, leaves the potatoes and green beans, because even he knows he can't eat that.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes to Rachel, and I think he's really seeking for her reassurance that he's still human, because Rachel is very adamant. You are a human. No matter what your form is, you're a human. And I think he's kind of looking for that, because he tells her, you know, he's losing it. And she tries to say, you're not. You have us. We're here for you. And, you know, then she says something like, oh, the Andalites probably have a solution for this when they finally show up. And Tobias is like, yeah, they probably do. And in his head, he's like, no, they don't. Like, we were told they don't. We know this, you know?
Yeah.
Ah, great. So, you know, on that happy note, I wrote that the sharing comes up, but I have no context for this and I don't remember it. So the sharing comes up, and then we hear that Marco's mother drowned. Yay!
Oh, is that when that's first brought up?
This is when we first hear that she drowned. We knew she was dead. But
right.
This is where they specifically say it was in an accident where she went and drowned. So, that's fun.
What's the scene for this? I read this a week ago and I don't remember it.
What?
Are they all together in the barn again and talking about this?
I think they might be. I truly do not remember. I think this was all just a setup to get Rachel to talk about her gymnastics exhibition.
Okay. Yeah. And I wrote I wrote down a note that says, "Does Marco like Rachel?" ?
I don't know. I mean, it's not ever called out specifically, but I think there's some flirty stuff that happens between the two of them sometimes.
Yeah. I don't remember the specific line, but I was kind of like, oh, that's It kind of made me wonder. Anyway, but that's probably incidental at this point.
I mean, maybe it's incidental, but like
you'll never know.
You'll never know. You don't know what's going on in Kay Applegate's head. She could be like, "Listen, I don't know where this series is going because we're at book number 3 and we're already in the most depressing suicidal child I've ever thought of in my life. Jeez. So maybe I just need to have a backup there with Rachel and Marco."
Yes.
I don't know. What do you ship?
What do I ship?
What's your ship?
They're 12. I ship nothing.
I ship never talking about children and relationships again until they're 36 years old.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yes, as you mentioned, Rachel brings up her gymnastics meet, and Marco's like, I'm totally going to show up to that. And Rachel's like, no, don't. I hate it performing in front of people. Don't you dare show up. Which, seems like an incidental conversation, but actually kind of pays off later.
Yeah. And it's so... That is really weird. That's kind of flirty. Marco being like, I'll be there, baby girl.
I chose to take a sip of water at that point.
Did it come out your nose?
No, I almost spit it out.
Dang it.
God.
So close.
Anyway.
I'll get you one time. Oh my god.
I'll be there, baby girl.
I'll be there, baby girl.
Rachel,
I'll
Rachel,
be there for you.
Rachel, I love you, baby girl.
Rachel. Oh, God.
Anyway.
So, after this whole gymnastics exhibition thing, they're like, so anyways, back to business. What are we going to do about the giant alien ship that's sucking up water and air? Oh, what?
Oh, sorry. You mean, okay, I thought you skipped the whole gymnastics thing.
No,
you just skipped the gymnastics conversation. Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
yes.
sorry. We could go through it line by line if you wanted.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, no, they're like back to
yes.
business.
Yeah, so they start talking about the ship again.
Yeah, and it kind of turns into this conversation about, like, well, let's decloak it in front of everybody. And they're like, well, no, then the aliens will just attack Earth. And Jake's like, if they had enough firepower to openly attack Earth, they would have done so. Clearly they don't. So our best bet is to expose the aliens so that everybody knows about them. Mm-hmm. Which is, they're still, it's so early in the series that they're still like, the Andalites are coming back. Wait, we just have to tell authorities about this. Authorities will help us. And it's like, no, authorities are never going to help you. This is far beyond you. So, they're like...
You know, it would be interesting to see if they, if they do expose the Yeerks, like, which of the world leaders goes, oh, UFOs, don't be ridiculous, versus like, oh my fucking god, there's UFOs. So that would be really easy to like weed out who's a controller and who's not.
Who was president during this time?
Clinton? Mid-90s?
Okay.
Yeah, Clinton, I think. Yeah.
He believes in UFOs. He looks like a guy that believes in UFOs. I'm gonna lay down that bet.
Yeah.
He'd be like, let's bomb them.
I don't know enough about Clinton.
I don't know. I'm judging entirely on the mental picture I have in my head to make the statement, I believe that Clinton would believe in UFOs.
I just know that he played the saxophone in the opening of Animaniacs.
What?
it's in the song. I mean, not like physically actually did it. They just animated him playing the saxophone. Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to be misleading.
I wasn't a huge Animaniacs fan, but I was just willing to go watch that entire series because of that opening sequence. Now I'll never know.
You'll never know.
I'll never know.
Anyway, so yeah, they're gonna expose the Yeerks in front of everybody. That's their game plan. Yep,
because they need to get more than just 5 children fighting against an entire invading army of aliens.
They might be feeling a little overwhelmed at this point and would like some allies.
Yeah, especially since one of the 5 just got turned into a hawk forever. So it's really 4 young children and a hawk.
Right.
Which is not... Those odds suck, man.
Yeah.
Well, yep. Now they have to come up with how those 4 kids and a hawk are going to get enough firepower to go in and get into a ship and take it down or decloak it or whatever. Also, not pointing out that none of them know this technology or how to decloak the ship once they get in there. Mm-hmm. But, that doesn't really matter.
Minor details.
Minor details. Just minor things. So they're like, well, there's a giant tubey thing that comes out of the bottom, so let's just morph into a fish and get sucked inside a sealed reservoir. It'll probably work, right?
Yeah, that seems legit.
And they're like, the most important part of this is that we do this on a Saturday because we can't take any more time off school, and Sunday I have to get my homework done. So...
Kid problems.
Kid problems. I start talking a lot more, especially in the next book, about how much I love the kid problems they have. They're like, well, we have Saturday morning cartoons, so it's got to be like after 10. And also, it's really hard to skateboard to your house. So, like, it's just ridiculous. And, like, they're like, well, we're still doing gymnastics meets, and, we're still doing after-school activities, and, like, man, they're just, I can't
priorities,
keep up with this. Yeah, I can't keep up with this. I couldn't do one extracurricular and all my homework at the same time, much less saving the world when I was in middle school.
Oh, totally.
I couldn't.
Oh, god damn it, Matt's playing Zelda.
No, kick him off.
I can
Tell him
hear
no.
you.
Joanna.
Oh, God.
Oh, God. So we're just trying
to
to avoid talking more about Tobias. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're just trying to have a few laughs.
We're trying to get him out.
Because this next part is oh my god.
Yeah.
Let's just get it over with.
Let's get it over with. This is the part.
So they all depart from wherever they were meeting. I think it was like Jake's room. And Tobias at this point is feeling pretty okay about being a bird. You know, he's kind of trying to look on the bright side of things. And then he lets his guard down a little bit and he spots a small rodent in the field. And before he knows it, he is on top of this rodent, devouring its innards.
Yep.
And then he looks down at the blood on his talons, and his mind breaks, and everything is terrible.
Yeah, and he tries to run, and he falls face first because he's a bird. And then he takes off, and his only thought is, I have to go see Rachel. I have to borrow some of her strength, and I have to go see her. And I think it's because she's the only one that insists that he's still a human, despite everything. He's a human. Right. So Tobias takes off towards the mall, because Rachel's at her gymnastics meets, and he decides that I don't even know if he decides. He just all of a sudden is plummeting at the glass doors, and he's going to try to kill himself. Like, he needs to get out of this body. He just wants to shatter his reality and get out of here. He just can't. He wants to kill his hawk body.
Yep.
So he tries to plummet into the building. He's going towards the glass, and through some extraordinary chance, somebody opens the first door. And he goes, it's fine, there's a second door. He makes it through the second door, and he's probably going, I think he mentions that he's flying in at like 40 miles an hour, but coming out of a stoop, he was probably going like 80 miles an hour.
Jeez.
That force easily could have killed him.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes into the mall, and he's zooming past all of these stores, and it almost reminds me of in Willy Wonka when they go through the tunnel of horrors. It's like the worst possible thing you can see is every semblance of your human life. The stores that you would go in, the clothes rushing past you, just every store. You're not a human anymore. You're not a human anymore.
I hate this.
Oh fuck, me too. And he's taken off into the mall, and he bounces off of a window, and that's kind of where Rachel is. So he ends up bouncing off towards her, and she tries to grab him out of the air. She falls off the balance beam because she's just started her routine, and he's screaming at her that he killed, he's not a human anymore, he's lost, he's a hawk. And Rachel is trying her best to tell him without letting on that this is all being screamed in her head, that he has the other Animorphs, he has her, and that he's not alone, and that he's a human, and that it's all going to be fine. She kind of throws him up to get him free of the crowd, who's now trying to grab him and hit him because, you know, he's a crazy bird and it looks like he's trying to attack Rachel. And Tobias decides he's going to take off at the skylight, and this is kind of his last-ditch attempt at killing himself. And he goes, he let the hawk take over because the hawk doesn't understand glass, and the hawk killed, almost like, I have to punish this body because of what it did and what it needs and what it is. And it deserves to die.
There's so much, like, content. There's so much, like...
so much. And this
like,
is...
underlying meaning. Oh my god, I hate this.
There is. And, like, a lot of this, I'm just gonna keep going. I gotta power through, man. So, Tobias just takes a total back seat to it and is almost... Like, even in this moment, he refuses to kill the hawk. The hawk has to kill itself. He's trying. And then Marco comes in at the last minute and throws a baseball through the skylight, shattering it, and Tobias is free. And he just he's already given up the back seat to the hawk, so he just continues being in the back seat, and the hawk takes off, and for several days just establishes a territory, is hunting, is doing that, and at night he's having these dreams of being a human, and he can't stand it. He just keeps trying to forget and, like, go back into this hawk body. And
he starts eating and living like a hawk, so he's eating live, mice and shit. And yeah, everything you said.
Yeah, he just totally surrenders to this body. Oh, man.
Heavy shit, audience.
God, this was the first book you read, and you kept coming back, even though it was like 20 years later.
Fuck.
You came back, man.
I think I might have been a little too young to, like, form emotional attachments to the level. That sounds bad, but, like, to the point where I can form emotional attachments now. Like I have much more empathy now, like, 20 years later, than I probably did back then. Because when you're a kid, you don't understand shit because you're a dumb kid. But yeah, like, so, like, I think I knew it was, like bad news bears, but to the extent I didn't realize until, reading it now.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's almost like because you're a kid, you just don't have, like, the emotional depth to get it. And also, like, there's no way reading this as a small child that, like, I would never have been able to understand this double, like, this is my body now, and also I hate it and it needs to die. Like, having that sort of, I don't even know what to call it, just like that disconnection in your head, and just not being able to imagine that. Like, I would not have been able to figure that out as a kid, and reading through it now, it's like, yeah, I can, obviously I can't get it because I've never been in that situation before, but I can kind of imagine it. I can imagine how horrific it is, and you kind of know now what it's like to be trapped by a situation, whereas when you're a kid, it's kind of, you have a lot more freedom almost, because you're not like, oh, I'm stuck in this situation forever, whereas, like, when you're an adult reading this, you're like, yeah, I've been stuck in a shitty job or a shitty relationship, or, like, I've been in a situation where it's like there is no way out of this, and you know how horrible that feels. And then to have it be, like, literally my body, there is no way out of this. Like, oh God. I'm sorry.
So heavy.
I know.
Our, like, listeners are gonna be like, oh, look, it's the Animorphs podcast. Let's go, like, listen to all the silly jokes they make. No.
That was a fun romp. Let's revisit it.
This is not what we signed up for.
It's, oh God. Well, this is probably not at all. But we gotta talk about it. Yep. Because we've made it our jobs.
Yeah, I hope this is, like, I understand all the books are pretty heavy, but, like, I hope this is kind of, like, the only low point for a while. You can probably attest more to that than I can, but
there certainly is. There's a lot of fillers. Like, there's a lot of books that are kind of, like, more upbeat and funnier and more fillery, and then there's also going forward that spiral into leaning into the morphs to help get over this. Like, Tobias is the one that can't shift, and so he's in every single way stuck emotionally and in his body. And so, like, this is without going into spoilers, this is, for a while gonna be the darkest book, because we don't have another Tobias visit until for another, like, 9 or 10 books. Yeah, for another 9 or 10 books. So this really is, like, one of the darker ones. And even knowing, like, just tearing back the curtain a little bit, we did read the 4th book already, so you know that the next book is really a high point after this. Yeah. So it really does kind of get better, and towards the end of the series, we'll curve back towards this feel that Tobias has right now, but none of the other characters at this point are kind of in this dark space that Tobias is. Right. So.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Oh.
God.
Oh, jeez. So. Well, shall I continue with our fun book of horrors?
Yeah, so Tobias is living as a hawk to kind of try and cope with what happened. And then he hears some screaming, and something clicks in his brain, as he sees a human being chased by a Hork-Bajir?
Yeah, and this really also made me question the whole Marco Tobias thing. The thing that comes into his head, the first thing that pops there is salad shooter. And he goes, oh, Marco called him a salad shooter. He's like, Marco, oh my God, Marco. And Marco's snapped him out of this. After Marco stared at him and hated him and he brought Marco out of his morph, later in the book, Marco snaps him out of being the Hawk and brings back Tobias.
And Marco saved his life, too.
And Marco saved his life at the mall. So, as much as he can say he and Marco will never be friends, this just happened.
It's very significant. Things just happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I read that, and, reading it again while writing it down and not just for enjoyment, I'll hit these things sometimes where I'm like, oh my God, wait a minute. That's a reference to what happened earlier. Kind of a bookend to it. Continuity, but in the best way. So I just thought that was an amazing moment. I don't know. It says something to the connection that the Animorphs are already forming with each other. And it just says something towards how tight this team really has to be to make any of this even work in the slightest. To even have a chance. They already are oh yeah, we don't get along really well. Oh, but he did save my life last week, and also then again, 10 minutes ago. So, that's pretty cool.
Yes.
So anyway, sorry, yes, Hork-Bajir. As you were saying, a Hork-Bajir was attacking a human.
Yes.
And, he goes to help the human out. He swoops down, and we don't really find out what happens because it just really, it cuts to Rachel. Tobias being at Rachel's.
Yes.
So, Tobias ends up at Rachel's. We didn't find out what happened to the human yet. And Rachel flips the frack out and tries to hug him. And she mentions how they've all been worried sick about him. And then Rachel just gets pissed because Rachel's always pissed.
Yeah, it's kind of I'm so happy to see you, and smacks him across the head. Why would you do that?
Exactly. that classic maneuver, they walk in and they're like, where have you been? Smack. So Tobias tells Rachel everything that happened to him, and she gets kind of mad that he let the Hawk win. And I think this is the first time in the series that we see Tobias kind of stand up against Rachel. And he's kind of like, yeah, I let the Hawk win. I'm part Hawk now. Get used to it. And he admits that he almost didn't save the guy because he was watching that predator-prey dynamic, and he's a part of that, and he kind of didn't think he had maybe a right to it. I don't know if that's the right word. But now that he's part of that whole ecosystem, he doesn't think he can tear it apart. So, Tobias is talking to Rachel, and she's adamant, saying, you're a human, you're one of us. And he goes, you know what, I'm not. I'm kind of something in the middle. And she mentions that Marco came through for him in a big way. And then Tobias mentions going to see Jake and getting his CTA, as I called it. And that his call to action is that he realizes that humans with Yeerks are trapped in their bodies the same way that he's trapped as a hawk. And he doesn't want anyone else to feel this. And the difference between him and them is he can free them. And he can do that for them, even though he'll always be trapped. And now he has his reason to fight.
Oh, shit.
Damn. I love it. I love it so much. So, they're going to go do the mountain mission, which I had all but forgotten about at this part of the book. I was like, oh, right, there was another plot happening here other than Tobias just having the worst freaking time in his life.
I totally forgot about the plot while I was being emotionally torn apart.
I know, right? While I was taking that beating, I forgot that other things were happening. So, back to the main plot? Question mark?
Yeah.
All right, main plot.
So they morph wolves again, and they head up to the mountain area, and they hide out in a cave.
Yes.
To rest and wait.
Catch a fish.
Catch fish, yes.
Which they're bad at.
They're very bad. You're terrible.
They are terrible at this. And Cassie's like, this just takes time and patience. And she's like now this like Zen fisherman. Ah, Cassie.
I wrote down a note that says, there's no way Cassie is so calm / level-headed all the time. Like, why? I don't know.
Oh, I can't wait till we get to a certain book narrated by a certain girl.
Even Jake's getting pissed off at this point. Like, Jake, ever so patient and, you know, the leader, is like snapping at people.
Yeah. The only thing I can think of in Cassie's defense right now is that like she has been working with her dad like at a vet clinic, and her mom is the head vet of the gardens for, I assume, her entire life. And so she does have that like, when everything's going to shit around you, you just stay calm because you have to think it through. So like she does have some training in that, and like she'll probably be a little bit better than everybody else. But yeah, this whole like waiting around for a fish, that's got to be so annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the last possible second, she catches a trout. And they all acquire it. Yay! They caught a fish.
They did
with
it.
a string and not at all a worm.
Phase 1 complete.
Yeah. You know, never mind. I was going to say they could have brought a lure along with them so it wasn't just a hook, but... You know.
I mean, part of me is like, Rachel could have morphed back into Fluffer McNuttons and caught the fish. But
Fluffer McNuttons!
I don't keep forgetting the dumb cat's name.
Oh, it's Fluffer McNuttons.
Captain Knuckles.
Captain Knuckles. The cat. Oh my god. Yeah, that's true. They could have done that.
Again, it's a stamina, energy, how many morphs can you do in one day type of situation, but, like, you know.
They could have somehow acquired a fox morph at the barn, and then we could have had a Fox and the Hound fishing moment.
Oh, I love that movie.
It's a good movie. So anyways, back to the book. Tobias sees that female hawk again. And he knows that she wants him to join her. He doesn't know how he knows this, but he gets kind of drawn into it because he's part hawk now.
Do hawks mate for life?
So there's some debate over that. They do for the most part. And of course, like if a mate dies or something like that, they might change off. And there are situations where they will leave their mates for other ones. But for the most part, they mate for life. And they share their territory throughout the season and all that jazz.
Okay, just fact checking, because I wrote down a note that says hawks mate for life, ?
Fact checks.
Fact checks.
So while he's gazing lovingly at his hawk girl, there's suddenly helicopters. Because he was so distracted, and the rest of the team is struggling into the cave because he's like screaming like, get in the cave, you know, flying as fast as he can at them, and you know they're crawling through the brambles, but they don't have shoes and it's thorny and it's all like grown in. And so Tobias is like, I know exactly what to do. He goes into a dive at the helicopter, flies directly at the helicopter, and like right up until the last minute was like, I'm gonna crash in the windshield. And then finally, like, the helicopter pilot notices him and dodges one way and he dodges the other, and it was lucky. Okay.
So they played chicken, basically.
They played chicken. If only the longest recorded flight of a chicken wasn't 13 seconds, this would have made sense. So anyways, so that allowed his friends to make it into the cave okay. It stalled out the helicopter pilot for just long enough for Rachel to get in there. She was the last one struggling in, and it was okay. So the ship appears soon after, and then the Blade ship appears. Dun,
of course.
Dun, dun,
Visitor 3 makes his appearance.
He makes his appearance. We can't go a full book without talking about Visitor 3.
I mean, it's kind of true. I'm like, he's shown up in every single book so far, and I'm like, does he have other places to be?
No.
Alright.
No, he doesn't. This is the only place he has to be. Where else do we have to be? He's, like, not doing a great job ruling the whole invasion of Earth. I mean, you might as well just come see what the lake's about. So,
how's my lake doing?
How's my lake going? How's the oxygen collection going? I spent all day beheading people, and I just want to look upon my lake. So, oh god. Since Visitor 3 showed up, Tobias is like, that's it, I'm out. Like, screw this, Visitor 3's here. And Jake and Rachel are like, no, let's do it now. Like, this is even better because we can, do it right under his nose kind of thing. And Marco's of course out. I did not feel the need to write that down. Marco does not want to do this.
Right.
And then Cassie tips the scales by saying, like, we could get into the water with this heightened security in the blade ship here now if Tobias carries us out of the cave there. And Marco and Tobias are both like, that is a terrible idea, Cassie. You're an idiot. Because fish, they need to go underwater. Caves are not underwater. Well, I mean, some of them are, but not this one.
Not this particular cave.
Not this particular cave that they're in right now. So they start this insane plan, and they're very surprised that it works, which, me too. I agree. And once again, Rachel's the last to morph. They do have some, like, moments of tension where it's like Cassie morphs into a fish, and she's like, oh shit, I can't breathe. And he drops her in the water, and she's like, all right, this is cool. They, of course, make... Oh.
Sorry. I was thinking about Tobias carrying fish one by one into the lake, which is super suspicious looking. Why don't the Yeerks have, like, a zoologist with them at all times just to observe, like, weird animal behavior and be like, hey, that fox over there is acting really weird. Maybe it's one of the Andalite bandits. Like, Yeah.
It would make sense.
That would make sense. That's what I would do if I were Visser 3.
Visitor 3 doesn't do anything smart. I shouldn't say that. He's a fantastic villain. He was put into a situation where it wasn't playing to his strengths. Like, he earned this position at the invasion of Earth, but his skills are being over the top and doing the overt thing and coming in guns a-blazing and intimidating. And the subtlety game is just not his thing, and so I think that he overlooks a lot of times what other people. So
he's Invader Zim, basically.
He's basically Invader Zim, and
gotcha.
Yeah, and like I think he overlooks that a lot because he doesn't think anyone else will be subtle because he's not subtle and he's the best leader. Like I think it's one of those things.
Anyway, cool.
So Tobias does get them all here, but on his final flight out with Rachel, he does go directly at the human. The Hork-Bajir slices off a little bit of his tail, and he does get out, but they fire a Draken beam at him, and the guy misses and hits the truck ship, as I now refer to it.
Oh, yeah.
Blows a tiny hole.
He gets in trouble.
He gets in huge trouble. So the gang is, they're checking out the intake pipe. He's going to get in trouble. We're going to revisit this. He does get in trouble, but just 1 second. Just hold on 1 second.
Hold your horses.
Because I need to tell you what I typed here, which was the gang is checking in with Tobias at the intake pipe, and Rachel reports that there's tremendous suction. Sorry. I had to point that out. So I get sucked up with the tremendous suction. And, the rest of the plan at this point is to wait until the reservoir is filled up in the ship, and then they're going to get to the top and morph human and let themselves out. Bing, bang, boom.
Seems foolproof.
Done. Not a big deal. So Marco's like, well, this is totally insane. And Rachel then recaps the plan to him, like, what, being a fish, getting sucked up the tube, getting pulled into a reservoir, and then, like, decloaking a ship? And Marco replies, well, okay, as long as we all know we're nuts, let's do it. So Tobias is keeping up with all of his conversation by flying underneath the belly of the ship, which is very dangerous and stupid.
Yeah.
But he does it anyways. His friends are all like, oh man, I can't believe we can hear you through this entire ship. And he is like, oh yeah, that's pretty incredible, isn't it? And he scoots out of there, and that's when he sees the Hork-Bajir and the guy that accidentally shot the truck ship. Which is a giant manta ray ship. I'm sorry, I don't know if I said that. I'm calling it a truck ship now because it delivers stuff. Okay, cool. So he scoots out from under the truck ship, and the guy, he's getting reamed out by Visor 3. He's like, how could you dent my baby like this, Like, when somebody sideswipes
it's like when somebody dinged up your... Yeah, I was about to say. Somebody dings your car.
How could you do this? And then the guy gets what we can assume is viciously beheaded. They don't tell us.
Oh, is that? Yeah. Tobias is just like, I won't describe to you what happened to that person.
He's like, this
and
would
I was
be
just
my
like, but I kind of want to know.
I know. Wait, but I'm really into that. Can you tell me a little more?
Yeah. Did they eat him? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah, he's like, this is my private torture to carry. I think he got beheaded or mangled in some way by Visitor 3's tail, and then probably shot a little. That's my guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, in any case, something terrible happened. It was graphic,
And Tobias censored it for us, because, again, he's such a good
Thanks,
freaking
Tobias.
guy. Thanks, dude. Good looking out, Tobias.
Thanks, Tobias.
It's like, way to drag us through your own personal emotional hell, but, like, censor when somebody gets brutally murdered. Thanks, dude.
Yeah. Very productive.
Yeah, my tone changed drastically between those two. Oh, jeez. So, but right before this guy gets brutally murdered, he says to Visitor 3, hey man, there's a suspicious bird flying around. And he's like, ah ha ha, I'm still going to kill you. And then they all turn around and they're like, lo, the suspicious bird. And Tobias was there, and he was acting suspiciously. So all of a sudden the helicopters descend on him. They're, everything they can think of to come after him is going after him, and he lands on top of the ship.
Yeah, that's his solution, is to land on the ship and sit there so that they don't shoot the ship.
You know why that is, right? Because the closer you are to danger, the farther you are from harm.
Oh my god!
Lord of the Rings. Boom.
Oh my god.
So
that's the last thing they'll expect.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. Sorry, we're just throwing
references,
quotes left and right here.
All right. That
have nothing to do with this. So, going back to the actual book we're supposed to be talking about, he lands on the ship, and Visitor 3 starts threatening him, saying, give up the other Andalite Andalite Bandolites.
Bandolites.
The Andalite Bandolites.
Let's just call them Bandolites.
All right.
That's perfect.
So he says, give up the Bandolites, and he'll kill him quickly. But if he captures Tobias, he will torture him slowly. Which, that's going to be hard. You can't say anything to him that he hasn't already said to himself.
Oh.
I know. So,
Ow.
As this is happening, and Visitor 3 is like monologuing to him, and give up the Bandolites, and we'll let you go quickly to death quickly. And Rachel starts chiming in on the other end of the spectrum, saying, they're trapped. They're all trapped. The grate won't open. They can't get out. They did not think this through very well. And this is kind of it. This is the end for them. And Rachel says there's no way out. We refuse to be taken alive. So they're going to go down fighting. And she starts begging Tobias, if there's anything you can do to take out the ship, do it now. I know it's not possible. I know you're just a bird. But if there's anything you can do, now's the time. If you have a hat trick up that little bird sleeve of yours, now's the time, man. And Tobias says, Rachel, I never told you. And she says, you don't have to, Tobias. I knew.
Oh.
Goodbye.
Oh.
I know.
Heck.
So she starts morphing back to human, because she's going to cut off all contact. They're going to, I guess, get ready to go to Battlemorphs when it goes up there. And Tobias kind of is like, well, the Yeerks won. This is it. It was stupid to think we could ever fight them. We're kids. And this was a terrible maneuver. And I wrote, you're not wrong. But so Tobias is like, well, at this point, I have nothing more to lose, because the Animorphs, the Bandolites, are the last thing that's keeping me human. This is the last connection I have to humanity. So he's like, I'm going to be a hawk too. And as he does that, he kind of realizes, I'm being hunted. But you know what? I'm a predator too. I know how to hunt too. And so as the helicopters are closing in on him, there are Taxons that are sent up above the ship to come after him as well. And they're coming out with Draken beams. So Tobias is like, I can't go above them because I'll be killed by the helicopters, by Draken beams, and they'll shoot me. And I can't go into their mouths because then they'll eat me. So he goes and he grabs a Draken beam off of them. I wrote right out of his little pincers. And
his little pincers.
The little pincers. He grabs the Draken beam and goes racing towards the cockpit. And Visitor 3 is like, simple, start flying the ship. And Tobias is like, oh shit, this will end everything. I can't keep up with the ship flying. So he's getting mocked. Visitor 3 is mocking him. He's still not talking back to Visitor 3. Because remember, at this point, the kids are they're afraid to talk to him. They don't want them to know that they're kids and not Andalites. And Andalite Vandalites. And so he's on this crazy kamikaze mission, and he's literally dragging himself across the top of the ship by his little talons in any hole that he can come to. And he has this moment where he's like resisting the urge to tell him, I'm not an Andalite, I'm Tobias. But then he's like, I'm not going to say that. That's a terrible idea. I won't sound cool at all because I'm a nerd. And which is
probably smart.
It's very smart. It's one of the smartest things that happens in this entire scene. Yeah. So he's crawling towards the cockpit. He makes it there, and the last bit of strength he has, he pulls the trigger for as long as he can to do as much cockpit damage as he possibly can. And then when he can no longer hold on, he just lets go and just starts tumbling away. But he's hit all the controls on the ship, so it starts wobbling. It hits a helicopter. It hits a bug fighter. And then the side of the ship that hit the bug fighter gets torn open, and the reservoir opens up. And then I wrote, Tobias says, "Oh boy." So he tears...
So Tobias shoots a gun. Hawk shoots a gun.
It's Hawk. See... He would have been on board with our kangaroo pouch gun plan. If only we had expressed this to him.
Oh, I had a question.
Yes.
When he is shooting the gun, he mentions, like, oh, it's not like any gun I've ever shot before. There was no recoil or something like that. And I'm like, has he shot a gun before?
I assume because his uncle is, like, described as kind of like a weird redneck alcoholic dude. Maybe?
Ah, alright.
I don't know if there's specific references to that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had.
I mean, it's incidental, but it was just an interesting...
No, I like it.
Moment.
I like that question. Oh, man.
So, okay.
So
everything's falling.
We're closing in on the end.
Yeah.
We're closing.
Which is good. We have 13 minutes left.
Before our time is talking about this forever. So
debris falling.
Yep. You want to take it?
Sure. I think I remember what happens.
Do it.
Because I also have a point that I'm leaning into.
Yes.
So debris falling, and the Animorphs we see are falling, and it's a very long fall, and they're kind of like, oh shit, and they start morphing into their bird morphs. Which I was confused because in the book, it mentions that Marco was morphing into a bald eagle.
Yup.
And I'm pretty sure he only had an osprey morph, as mentioned in book 2.
Yep.
So, little continuity error there.
Mm-hmm.
But, they managed to get into their bird morphs before hitting the ground, and they're all okay, for the most part.
They are, and Marco starts immediately complaining, because it's Marco. And Tobias says, cool dude, but like we're not safe yet. Get to the trees immediately. And so the Animorphs do because they have human intelligence. But then Tobias's girl Hawk, who doesn't have that intelligence, takes off. And they shoot at her. They hit one of her wings, which burns off, and she goes spiraling to the earth, never to fly again.
Because they thought she was Tobias.
They thought she was Tobias. And that's kind of where that scene ends.
Yep.
So, the last part of this book, what we end on, is Rachel and Cassie have been talking, and they say they want to go retrieve the hawk and bury her because she meant a lot to Tobias. And Tobias basically says, no, that's not the way of wild animals. That's human, and I need to kind of be both. And Rachel's saying, like, no, you're human, we can do this for you, it won't be a problem. And he's like, no, I live in the wild now. This is the way of the wild. This is how it has to be. And he kind of says that he's found a peace, sort of, within himself, but I think he's just kind of figured out the first bit of it.
Yeah, it's his first step towards accepting both of his identities.
Yeah, accepting kind of who he is. And so then he legitimately just takes off into the sunset. And that's the end of book 3.
That's the end of that terrible emotional roller coaster of death.
Yeah. Yeah, that was book 3.
Hooray!
I sighed deeply when you said hooray.
Da 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 da.
Jeez, man.
Yeah, so that was a ride.
So, my question for you: if you had to be trapped as any animal for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
You should have asked me that at the beginning before we got all in depth about this emotional turmoil.
Just trying to lighten the mood.
Oh my god. I don't know. I don't know
either.
Because, like, my initial instinct is to say dog, but there are so many dogs that don't have great lives that might not be great. I don't know. And also dogs are dumb and rely on humans.
That's true of any animal, though.
I say that. I say dogs are dumb in the most affectionate way possible.
Yeah.
Because I love dogs, but they are dumb and they rely on humans. I guess they can make it on their own, but they're
only
dumb.
if they're streetwise.
Street smart.
And you'd still have human intelligence.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I could probably make it as a dog.
For sure. I'd be an orca.
All Sirius Black up in here. Oh, you'd be an orca.
For sure. Getting all Sirius Black up in here. I'd be a big black shaggy dog and appear to people before they died. Yeah, I'd be an orca for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Live like
eat some
80 years. Same lifespan.
Eat some shark livers.
It could be so much fun. Oh man.
Man, wasn't there a movie about that shit, like The Lobster, right?
The Lobster?
The Lobster. It's a movie that came out, I think, last year, and it's like about this reality where people, if they don't find a mate after a while, they get turned into an animal, and they have to be that animal for the rest of their lives, and the guy chooses a lobster because they live to be, like, super, super long. I don't know.
I have never heard of this movie, but now I kind of want to watch it.
I don't know.
I don't know either. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, check that out, I guess.
Well, I'd pick an orca.
Animorphs. Yeah, I'd pick an orca.
It is vaguely Animorphs related.
So, any other closing thoughts? We're nearing our 2-hour time limit.
Oh man, I wanted to come up with more questions, because I came up with a few that I asked you throughout here, but I want to come up with more, but I just emotionally could not. Like,
yep.
I just had to talk about Tobias and his struggles.
Yeah.
Poor guy. God. Just a poor guy.
Mm-hmm. He's 12, for fuck's sake.
He's 12, and he's already had to do this. All of this.
Yep.
Oh, I do have one more recap for almost not at all Animorphs related.
Okay.
So in our last episode, we mentioned that we were going to be going whale watching the following day. We did. It was freaking awesome.
It was epic.
It was so epic. We saw a blue whale. And we saw humpbacks.
Saw 2 blue whales.
Saw 2 blue whales. And like a million humpbacks. Just a ton of birds and seals. So I just wanted to recap that all in case anybody had that nagging question in the back of their head.
Yeah, because we had mentioned it. But yes, we did follow through on that. We
did.
saw whales. And it was amazing.
It was super amazing. And just awesome.
And we're going to talk about whales more in the next episode, which I'm super excited about.
We are. I just didn't want to leave people hanging for an entire month. I wanted them to know we follow through on our promise of whale watching.
Yay! I freaking love whales.
Me too. Whales are the best.
They are the best. We should save them.
We should save all of them. We should also cuddle them.
I would love that.
Okay, let's do it.
It'd be kind of hard. Okay, we're going to go cuddle some whales.
Let's go cuddle some whales before our 2-hour time limit's up.
And we'll see you on the next episode, which is a little more uplifting than this book, I would hope.
It's gonna be way more uplifting than this book.
Hooray! Hooray! Please, God, save us.
Oh, please. I can't take any more of this emotional turmoil.
Yeah. Let's put this one to bed.
let's end it. Let's do what Tobias tried to do and failed.
No.
I'm sorry.
Minus the suicide.
That was a bad joke.
No, it's okay.
I'm sorry.
On that note, then, we'll see you in the next episode of Animorphs Anonymous.
Yeah, thank you for listening.